Okay, we are back with Coffee Break with Coachman. I'm Christian Coachman, live from São Paulo, Brazil. And today we have Ricardo Mitrani from Mexico. He's been here with us during the last hour. We were able to fix our technical problems. We are live. Now, if you enjoy this show, please help us share, spread the word. And I want you, Ricardo, before you introduce yourself, to follow everybody and go to Facebook, refresh your Facebook page, DSD Facebook page, find the interview and share in your own page. Help us spread the word because we really want to share important, cool information with absolutely everybody, absolutely everybody. So please help us spread the word. I'm doing this right now on my own page, and I hope everybody can help us spread the word as well. There we go.
I don't know if this is working.
On my timeline. So super excited, really, really very special for me to have this great, great friend, Ricardo. Thank you so much for opening time in your busy, busy schedule. I know you have 5 dental chairs busy with associates screaming for you. And I just saw you saying, shut up, I'm going live. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. Please say hello to everybody watching us, and let's have fun.
Sure. So thanks, Chris, and hi, everybody. This is always a pleasure connecting with you. Always a pleasure sharing some of our thoughts. We've been doing this for, I'd say, over 10 years, and it's always fun, and we do it in different media. So now doing it live, it's pretty cool. So excited about this.
As soon as I started this project of, as we say, interviewing the brightest brains in our industry, always interview not only clinicians, but researchers, CEOs, marketeers, professors. Since the beginning, Ricardo was always on my list because, as you said, Ricardo, we've been meeting each other on the main dental events since the last 10 years. And for some reason, every time we meet, we end up sitting and having amazing chats about crazy stuff. Sometimes about dentistry, but most of the times about life, about different perspectives. Many friends of ours, they call you the dental philosopher. And we are both, usually people call us both kind of crazy guys talking about things that many times people don't really understand what we are talking about. So today I want to try to organize these thoughts, and I want to break down this interview in 2 pieces. We're going to have a very cool piece on the clinical side where you're going to be talking about one of your main topics. I saw you lecturing many, many times about this topic, you know, terminal dentition, what to do, how to do, what to expect, how to deal with these patients. And the second part of the interview, I want to go more philosophical, where we're going to go wild and really be free to talk about tough principles, tough topics. We actually talked about this with a bunch of friends yesterday. I want you to talk about conflict of interest, not only on the clinical side, but also as a teacher. How do we deal with that? And combining conflict of interest, we're going to talk about selling in dentistry. Does that exist? Do we sell dentistry? How can we sell ethically? Shouldn't we sell at all? Also mention about persuasion. If we use persuasion, is that fair? Is that ethical when we are presenting a treatment plan to patients? So I'm sure people watching, we will really go over controversial topics. And I know that you are like me. We are not afraid of expressing our opinions. So I'm sure people will enjoy. But before we go into these topics, I want you to explain to us, who is Ricardo Mitrani? Where do you come from? What is your background as a professional? Your great story as a teacher? Where did you study and how you became one of the best dentists I know today?
Well, of course, that's very generous of you to say, being that you know so many. I'm a very simple guy, and the more I grow, the simpler I get. So I finished dental school nearly 30 years ago, and my older brother's a dentist, so everything was pretty much set for me. It was very simple for me to go through dental school and then finish and start a practice or join a practice. And then one day I realized that after 5 years of being in practice, I realized I had too many questions unanswered, and I had to go look for some answers. So after being in practice for 5 years, I decided to put my life on standby mode, and I was phenomenally fortunate enough to be accepted at the University of Washington PROS program. It was the craziest and most incredible time of my life. I was just surrounded by incredible educators and thinkers, dentistry. And you know how cool it is when you are the dumbest guy in a room? You know, you learn from everybody. And so I was taught not only about interdisciplinary management, but I was also taught to teach. Some of the greatest minds in dentistry have been our mentors. You know, Ralphie Dalis, Keith Phillips, Frank Spear, Vince Kokis, John Coyce, to name a few. So being back then inspired by these guys, you know, not only were you learning dentistry, but you were learning also to communicate dentistry. And so that's kind of like how the story started. And then, you know.
Since you mentioned Seattle, I already asked this question, I believe, to Tom Moore that went to Seattle with you and other guys. Try to explain to me what happened in Seattle when it comes to dentistry, that this powerhouse, you know, we have the generation above you, you mentioned a couple, in the same city, having people like John Coyce, Frank Spear, Vince Kokich, and others, and Michael Cohen, and ideas and principles and articles and publications. And then you have this program at Washington University, where people that came out of it just conquered the world. You know, I have as friends you, Tal Moore, Iñaki Camborena, you know, so many others. I don't know, Alan Sulkowski as well, right?
No.
Alan was going, no. But it's a list, it's a huge list of amazing, why do you think that happened during 2 decades, I would say, with 2 generations, such an amazing amount of amazing dentists?
Yeah, so the answer is very simple. So back in the, I'm going to say 70s, 80s, the heyday of interdisciplinary dentistry was pretty much between Boston University, you know, with Nevins and Kramer and that group. You had Pennsylvania with Gordon Amsterdam, Walter Cohen, and that group. And then Ralph Dalis and Sal Schluger in the University of Washington, who had a very close tie with them. So this is back in the day where the, you know, perio-pros movement was, you know, at a point in time in which all the world was looking at these guys. Of course, there are many other universities, but I would say that in the forefront back then, you had BU, Penn, University of Washington. And all it takes for these things to happen is to have a mentor. You know, somebody that believes in a concept and surrounds himself with good students and good teams. And for us, it was Ralph Dalis. And you know, he started lecturing around the world. And essentially what he was doing was showing the work of his grad students. And so, yeah, you mentioned a few in the list. The list goes on and on. You could add Steve Chu, who's a powerhouse in New York. Today, you can add, of course, Greg Kinzer, who's Frank Spear's partner in the practice, and now is directing part of the Spear Education platform, where, of course, I'm part of as well. So again, you have like tremendous clinicians, but not only tremendous clinicians, but also people that were taught to teach. Back in the day, we had a class that was pretty much geared to teach us how to put together a lecture and how to share information. And that's, as you know, in today's world, you can have incredible clinicians that don't know how to communicate. And then you can have incredible communicators that don't know much about how to, you know, their clinical skills are not up there. So
completely different, 2 different things. Yeah,
2 different things. And so this is, I guess, why University of Washington was such a powerhouse back then, and still today. I mean, we we have a lot of pride in it, because not only was it a true mecca of interdisciplinary treatment planning, you know, again, with sitting in a treatment planning session with Vince Kokich there, you know, giving you shit about what he thought you were doing wrong, and then having all these gurus, as I'm saying, from a perio world, from the pros world. I mean, it was next to impossible not to grasp the energy that was coming from that treatment planning room. So we had therapy seminars, we had treatment planning seminars, we had short and long-term recall seminars. So from a learning experience, it couldn't be any better than that.
Definitely a special moment and a special place in history of our profession. But since when you went to Seattle, were you already into restorative prosthetics, implants? When did you realize in dentistry, what do you love doing the most?
Yeah, I mean, my calling was prosthetics. That's what I used to love. In fact, I was teaching as an assistant professor here at the University in Mexico, you know, the undergraduate curriculum, and I loved doing that. And of course, people saw me as somebody that knew what he was doing, but I always felt that I had no idea what I was doing. And so, of course, that was my calling. And like I said, when I went there and I was exposed to all these wonderful, incredible minds, it just shaped my mind in a way that it was totally permanent, you know? So, and that's essentially what the program did was...
Yeah, go ahead.
You know, it's very cool when you're taught to think. You can be taught techniques, you can be taught a lot of information, but when you're taught to have critical thinking, then essentially they teach you how to fish, how to think about fishing in different waters. You know what I'm saying? So it was awesome.
I you know, many of these guys are also mentors for me, and I always call all of them as thought organizers. You know, it's not, you're completely right. You know, being a great clinician doesn't mean you know how to teach what you do. Actually, when you do something very well and you say, I'm going to start teaching this because I do this so well, when you try to put a simple presentation together, that's when you realize how much you don't know. How much you don't know about the procedure, but how much you don't know how to explain why you do it well. You know, usually when you do something well, you enter the automatic mode, and it's hard to stop and try to understand the process that you went through to become good. You know, you need to research your personal path on how you got there, and try to organize in bullet points and in a straight storyline that you can actually teach others. You know, I went through that when I was in the lab, and I wanted to grow the lab, and I was pretty good doing what I was doing, and I wanted to teach other people to do what I was doing. And that's when I realized that teaching others was completely different than doing that very well. And that's why I always mention I've been working more nowadays with Poise, but always inspired by Spear. And even in a simple topic, you know, you could have these guys on stage talking about something simple in 15 minutes, and you would come out with so much information because they were thought organizers, and they would come with bullet points and take-home messages and really give you a gift that you would change your Monday morning, right?
You bet. You bet. You know, especially in today's world, I was just lecturing on this last week. You know, we are bombarded through social media since we wake up with volumes of information that it's almost impossible to reconcile at a speed of light. In fact, how do we go through our feed? How do we go through Instagram? Well, you just go like this. You're scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. So again, velocity, and then complexity, because it is a lot of complexity in that information. So you put together volume, speed, and complexity as being bombarded. So tough to put together solid information that can be helpful on Monday morning for those that are listening to us. And so as educators, we are really challenged to be able to do this in a non-threatening way.
And go straight to the point, right? Because
the right channels that
you don't have time.
For sure. And then part of the problem is you know, in dentistry, many people want cookbook recipes. And cookbook recipes are great because they give us guidelines to follow a technique. But the problem is that every clinical situation is different. And if it's different, then your cookbook recipe doesn't apply to all clinical situations. And so you have to think if and when and how you modify the recipe. And so the recipe will give you guidelines. You will have things to think about that you can interchange, and you can go more in depth. But at the end of the day, when you're in the chair, there's a lot of clinical calls you have to make, clinical decisions.
Yeah.
And if you make it even more complex when you're working on a patient, and we're going to be talking about communicating with patients and conflicts of interest in selling or non-selling dentistry later on, but what we do is pretty complex. And you know what's funny is when you have people in the circuit or in Instagram or in Facebook or any social media claiming that dentistry is something straightforward. It is not.
It's anything but straightforward. And that's one of the reasons why I still believe that it's one of the last professions that the corporate world took over. It didn't even take over completely yet, dentistry, because it's not a production line. It's not, you cannot scale in an easy way. You can scale an aligner company to produce aligners, but you cannot scale treatment planning. You cannot scale decision-making process. I believe dentistry is one of the most complex things we have. And that's why it's hard for a businessman to buy a dental office and keep the level of care, keep the level of high-end dentistry, because it's a situation where it's multifactorial, and it depends on a deep brainstorm about several principles that we will mention a couple. And that's why it's so fascinating. That's why it's so beautiful. That's why I love teachers like you that teach about treatment planning, about decision-making process, about risk assessment, about the algorithms of the options, and how do you make the decisions that we need to do every day to deliver the best treatment to the patient, right? And because of those skills, you were invited to be one of the main guys at the Spear Education and Spear Center. Talk a little bit about this. Great honor first, and I already congratulated you several times, but it's a great honor to be part of such an institution.
You know, I say this quite a bit. I still pinch myself to see if this is really happening. I honestly believe that Spear Education is at the forefront of interdisciplinary teaching in the world. I mean, it is a platform where we have over 200 people working there. So we have an online component, which is huge, and we have a campus component, which is also phenomenal. So we have seminars, we have workshops. And so, yeah, for me to be considered and then invited by Greg Kinzer, who was my classmate at Washington, and of course, Frank Spear, who was my mentor, to be a part of that, that's just unbelievable. And to being able to hang out with them, and again, to be challenging each other and picking on everybody's brain, to be able to, figure out what is the best way to educate. It's funny, you mentioned, and there are many people in education and out there, and you mentioned a few. And the other day, having dinner with Frank and Gary DeWood and Greg, Frank said something that really struck a chord. He said, if you are in dental education, the only enemy is ignorance. You don't.
Yes,
you can have,
I'm sorry. The only enemy
is ignorance.
Yes.
You can have many people that are, competing to have a spot or get the spotlight, but at the end of the day, the only true enemy is ignorance. And somebody like you, Christian, understands this probably better than most people out there, because you're such a giver, and people that know you well know exactly what I'm talking about. And this is where education is really about. It's about giving, and giving with your best intention of helping those in the receiving end, but also understanding that those of us that teach, we have tremendous we have fringe benefits, because every time you teach, you get something back. And you know, our students happen to be the best teachers sometimes in so many ways and shapes and forms. And so one of the seminars that I teach at Spear is it's called Treating the Terminal Dentition. And I teach a 2-day seminar with Darren Deester, who's a phenomenal prosthodontist, also at the resident faculty at Spear. And we put together that program because it was missing from the curriculum. And you know, treating the terminal dentition is the
what are your roles? Before you go into that specific topic, what are your roles in the Spear education, and which courses and programs you are teaching there right now?
Right. So Spear Education, as I said, is a platform that has different aspects of it, or different platforms within the platform. So we have on-campus teaching, people that go and sit in a seminar, you know, or sit in a workshop. So I take part right now in 2 seminars. I'm part of the Art of Treatment Planning and Case Presentation seminar, and I do that with Frank Spear and Greg Kinzer. I run the terminal dentition course with Darren Deester. And then I'm also responsible for putting content together for our digital platform, which we have a subscription-based platform in which there are tons and tons of amazing content of all different topics. And then we have a network of 800, close to 850 study clubs. And so what I do is also I put together content for those study clubs. So we put modules together, and the way it happens is that the study club will receive that module, and it's a tutorial that walks the study club through a case or through a concept, and it's pretty interactive. So essentially, my role is half presence in the campus, but more importantly now in the digital part. And to tell you the truth, and you embrace this better than anybody else, you understand that being in the digital world, you're able to touch and to reach so many others. So right now, I don't know if you have the feed of how many people are listening to us, but instead of having a one-on-one conversation, now it becomes exponential. Well, same deal with Spear Online. I mean, we do modules for study clubs, and lo and behold, now 800 study clubs can see a module that I put together. And if in every study club there are 20 people, you can only see how ramifications, the exponential nature of this. So it's just phenomenal. And it's about understanding and enjoying this, the digital platform, the digital possibilities of reaching out. And my assumption is that right now we have, based on your ability to reach out, my assumption is that probably have people in the Middle East, Southeast Asia, Europe listening to us right now.
I was just looking into messages here, people from China, from Europe, from Middle East, and we will be able to answer all the questions later on. But
that's really
it's so cool. It's really amazing to be able to connect this way. And inside this process, that how many times you have to go at Spear? How many days a month you're there?
I'm probably once a month there, either for seminars or to film content. We have a spectacular state-of-the-art facility to film with green screen and widescreen and a whole production crew. So I go there also to film. So once a month, I would say.
And besides that, you do lectures in major congresses as well, right?
Yeah, I've cut down significantly. You know how it happens. You reach 50 and you start to learn to say no sometimes so that you can have a better quality of life. And years and years ago, I used to love, escaping from practice. And to tell you the truth, now I really enjoy being in practice. I enjoy mentoring my group here. We have more than one practice now. Now we have 4 practices. So when I'm here, I love teaching and being a part of this group here. So
what is the balance for you? The balance, how many, besides Spear, how many congresses per year?
You know, there's some meetings you cannot say no to, again, because of the type of people that go there, your friends and whatnot. And so I'd say it varies from year to year. So I don't have a magical number. Probably you're asking a question that you'd like to answer yourself, right?
I'm always asking that because it's hard to find the balance. But you would say like once or twice a month you're leaving for a Congress.
Probably, yeah. I would say that would be the sweet spot.
It's usually that, and that's a good balance because we go to phases where it's like almost every weekend. That's crazy. That's crazy.
It's
now,
crazy.
Okay, now go ahead.
You end up compromising, too much.
Yeah.
And it's a flexible system until you flex it too much,
Yeah. It's a decision you need to decide if you're gonna have as your main profession education or your clinic. It's you can have your clinic as your main business model and maybe once in a while go to congresses, to break the routine, to meet friends, to refresh, to reconnect and update your connections. But if your business is coming from your clinic, you told me once the story, as soon as your lecturing career exploded and it's hard to say no, you were traveling all over, super excited with the feedback. Of course, that our pleasure of being on stage, looking at people admiring you, it's very addicting, right? And then you told me once that you were destroying your own clinic. You realized that your team was not having fun. You were not caring about all the details, and that suddenly a few years ago, you made this drastic shift where you placed your team at the center of everything you do.
You bet. There's a saying in Spanish here in Mexico. It says, luz de la calle, obscuridad de la casa, which means the lightness of the street, but the darkness inside the house. So here I was lecturing all over the world, and I would come back to have the most unmotivated team you could imagine. It was not even a team. And that's where it hit me, I thought that people that work with me would get the knowledge through osmosis, we would like connect each other like the Avatar. It doesn't happen that way. You need to give them love. You need to give them time. You need to spend the right hours with them and empower them. And so this is why, the only reason why today, I can be sitting with you and although we have 5 chairs with 5 patients, I know that my team is doing dentistry at the level I would be doing it, if not even better. But that's because I now spend the right amount of time to make sure.
Priority. It's priority and taking care and honest priority, right? Really having them.
You can only imagine what a dream it is for them as well to realize that we're putting together content to teach the world.
Yeah.
Because through what we're doing here, again, through the channels of Spear Education, we're going to a ton of study clubs. We're going to a ton of people through Spear online. And so one of the things that Ralph Hidelis taught me back when you're talking about the UW magic, Ralph Hidelis used to go around the world lecturing on what his grad students did. And he would always acknowledge the work of his grad students. Again, this is something you know very well, but as you and I know, this is something that others in the circuit don't know that well, and they claim authorship in what they show. And so what Ralph did was teach me and teach us how he would put our names, in the circuit. And so essentially, I do the same. I mean, I will not lecture anywhere without acknowledging my team. And so for me, this is a true win-win situation. Again, you know this better than anybody else. You've gone out of the way.
I'm going to bring a question to you here right now because you're talking about an important topic. We all go through that. We go through certain moments where we have a mentor, we admire a mentor, we give so much to the mentor, and a mentor is a mentor, but he's a human being. He has issues as well, ego as well. And then at one point, the mentor disappoints you because you feel like he didn't give you the credit you deserve, something like that. And then you get away from that mentor, you look for another mentor, and it happens again. And then you realize that everybody is not black and white. We are all humans. We make mistakes, right? Then you become the mentor of others. And you need to exercise this every day. Otherwise, you do the same mistakes. And it's what I see is that it's very easy to be fair and to help people that doesn't threaten your ego, that doesn't threaten your position. Because this is very important to differentiate, I would say, oh, I'm a great mentor because I help all my students. Yeah, that's okay. That's great. But when you really see if you control your ego and you're really a mentor is when you're mentoring somebody that it's probably going to become better than you. It's going to maybe become more well-known than you. It's going to probably at one point get more invitations than you, and you still are a teacher, you still are a master, you still share, and you still promote this person that is taking over your position. That's when I see the huge majority of the mentors messing up. They're not ready for that person.
My opinion is that they should not be called mentors then. They should be called teachers. A mentor, mentor is a pact. A pact that has essentially one principle behind it, which is continuity. You know what I'm saying? So
continuity in a curve like this.
Continuity, for sure. I mean,
going up.
As dentists, or as for sure as dentists, we have a shelf life. We have a life that we can grow, and then it depends on how much you take care of your body, of your back, of your of you physically, of your diet, how much you're going to be in the dental chair. But at the end of the day, what the knowledge that you've been able to put together is going to go away to waste if you don't share it. Now, you can share it with a lot of people. And in a classroom, you're going to have a lot of students, but you're going to have few that are mentees. So you will become the mentor of only a few.
Yeah.
And that's where there's a pact. A pact, which means that continuity, it's a circle that has to do with the student not only honoring the mentor, but bringing things to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are a smart mentor, then you're going to be
usually mentor the teachers. They like great students, right? They like people that are excited, intelligent. But it gets to that point, that moment in time, that among a few students, you have that one that is so good that from a great student, it becomes a partner, and it starts to threaten the status quo of teacher-student, And that's when you need to learn with that experience. And I'm not saying we are completely away from that. Yeah, immune. We are not immune for that. And this is a daily exercise because, of course, we have our egos, and we get used to, as we teach, of people saying, wow, that's great, I love your work. And suddenly the same people can start looking at somebody else, and you need to feel good with that. That's the key.
You hear me out. If you want to be in the game, mentor somebody and be in the game, there is a fundamental rule. You got to make sure you're playing your A game continuously, because the day that you relax and you're not playing the A game, somebody will play the A game for you. So the mentor has to be a source of inspiration that doesn't stop. When you stop being that source, then of course that mentee is going to look for somebody else, or is going to feel it has the energy, the information, the content, the contacts to fly on his own. And as you very well know, I mean, you've created a movement. And every time I hear you talk about the movement, you don't make it about you. You make it about the movement. And so essentially, that's exactly what I'm trying to say here. I mean, it works the same way with me. I shouldn't be surprised if I'm not playing my A game and I'm not deliberately inspiring my team for one of them to say, bye-bye, I had enough of you. I'm going to open shop next door and I'm going to be better than you. And sure enough, they have the right to do that. We cannot hold them. We have to let them free.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's a mindset issue. It's not easy, but if you remind yourself that you have to be playing the A game,
but A game changes. It changes during different phases of your life. You cannot be the best forever, or you need to reinvent yourself as a mentor, and keep inspiring people, keep inspiring people. It doesn't mean that you're not going to have people becoming better than you in several different things, and you're going to keep supporting them.
Well, let me give you an example. as I said, Frank Spear is my ultimate mentor because in fact, I'm now working in a company called Spear Education. We had our summit last week, 1,200 people in that summit. And he started in the opening lecture saying, okay, guys, and this is, by the way, 1,200 people that are part of our faculty club. These are 1,200 people that are registered to be part of the faculty club. It's almost like on invitation.
Yep.
He starts the lecture saying, guys, we realize we don't know everything. We realize that as time goes by, we know less and less. So this is where we want you all to know that we're looking for these answers. But he never said, I, Frank Spear, is looking for these answers. So when you start using the we, it's when you become a powerhouse. When you have a true team where everybody praises each other, and you don't have to shove your contributions. Yeah. You're there for a reason. So then it's a snowball. It just keeps on growing and growing.
You just mentioned one of the key things for me, a key suggestion for people listening to us, identify if you're in front of a real mentor or just a super smart person. When we see a mentor speaking, it doesn't matter if that concept idea was 100% created by him. He's going to always say we. And people will ask, but why you're talking we? That's you. Say, no, it's we. Even if I don't know the we completely, there's we always, because you never build something alone. There's always inspiration that you don't remember. There's always insights that you don't recall. There's always conversations that helped you to create or develop something that are there on the back of your mind. And then when you come up with something, it doesn't matter if it's simple or complex, you're so proud of what you did that the I takes over. And I see the few very important guys that really have the egos under control. It's always we. It's we.
Chris, if you look forget about dentistry, if you look at...
And that is so powerful. That is the magic.
If you look at the movers and the shakers of today's world, if you look how they inspire, they all use the we. Today, the world is so complex. The one guy, if there's a one guy that would shine out, is that one guy that has to surround himself with people that are better than him. And again, going back to Ralphie Davis, that was, his signature statement. He was receiving a Life Achievement Award from Seattle Study Club Network in the year, I'm going to say 2000. It was one of the first recipients of the Life Achievement from Seattle Study Club. It was a packed room in Seattle's Fifth Avenue Theater. Standing ovation. He goes up and he says, let me share with you the secret of my success. He said, my mentor, Sal Schluger, taught me, Ralph, always surround yourself with people that are better than you. And that's what I did. Drop the mic. Done. And so if you look at the industry today, you look at the powerhouses in industries, you have one guy that's running the show, but he has to be outsmarted by all his people around, his circle of influence. You have a CEO that has a CMO, a COO, a CFO. They all have to be smarter.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure it's happening to you and your DSD company. I mean, you have to have smarter people around you. The other day, I was at a treatment planning session with my group, and I said, okay, guys, who has to be the dumbest guy in this room? And one of the boys says, that would have to be you. I said, bravo, cabrón. Exactly. I have to be the dumbest guy in this room. So when you create that energy, it's just crazy. Now, the problem is the dental gene, the gene in dentistry is so personal. It's a lone journey.
Yes.
So right. You have to show that you have to use the me so people will see your hand. And of course.
But don't you agree this is changing? Dentistry is becoming more fun and more enjoyable because dentistry is changing. Finally, we have our mentors. So Corey Spear, these guys, Kokich, and then the guys before them talking about interdisciplinary dentistry, Rick Robley and all these guys. And it was always something to go for. But now with, I think this concept of interdisciplinary dentistry is maturing. it's becoming the thing, and people are kind of born into that, and it's so much more fun to do dentistry today than it was, for example, my grandfather inside four walls doing the same thing for 40 years, almost zero interaction, you know. I can imagine the difference between working in an office like yours or here with my dad. You have 10 top guys discussing and having fun, discussing from the simple to the complex. You know, I think it's such an amazing moment of dentistry right now, where this is becoming real, not for a special case for a lecture, but becoming real in your office for every single case that you do today.
It may, but it's always a choice. I know you had Kyle Stanley a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about the emotional component and how tough it is for dentists, particularly in the US, but I could say in the world, as far as, you know, that the pressure, the debt, the finances and everything. And so, yeah, there's this fun component, but you'll have the fun component only if you have settled the rest. So it is so multifactorial that, and the day is so short that you have to make sure that you are able to build your day in such a way in which there's, you know, a learning process, but there's also an execution process, and you're able to deliver the goods that the patients want you to deliver. So
perfect.
Just to close this idea of growth and interdisciplinary management, of how Frank was talking the other day about how we have to fill in the pieces of the puzzle that we don't have yet. You know, one great component that is here to stay is the airway piece. And we have now also Jeff Rouse joined at Spear, who's I think a beacon of light in the world of airway, and he's actually reteaching how we should think orthodontics, how we should think pediatric dentistry, how we should think restorative dentistry. And so again, going back to an idea of, I do dentistry today, there's so much things to grab. It's so easy to neglect one piece. You know what I'm saying? And so, yeah, we should see it, you and I, that inspire people to see it this way. We have to let them know that there's other pieces of the puzzle and not only that one piece. Because the problem with, you know, weekend courses or techniques is that you end up neglecting the big picture. Again, this is something that I teach in our terminal dentition seminar, which, and I would like to enter in this arena, this subject for a few minutes. Terminal dentition. So what is it? Well, in the minds of many dentists, is many things, but I'll tell you, terminal dentition is a term that we dentists created. We choose when the patient's teeth should no longer be there. And we choose, and I want to tie it back to all the different elements that we had for our discussion. We choose based on what we think is the best for the patient, but there may be also a little conflict of interest here. You see, when you see people saying that they've done, and I'm going to say this very respectfully, this is not a witch hunt. I'm just saying we got to think the big picture. When in the name of doing a procedure, we do it every day, we start looking for it in patients that may not need it. And this is something that, again, this is an uncomfortable conversation that we all have to have with ourselves.